Welcome back. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. Right now, Paul Manafort is inside this courtroom facing another round of sentencing in D.C. Judge Amy Berman Jackson just told the court, quote, "What is happening today is not and cannot be a revision of a sentence that is imposed by another court." NBC's Ken Dilanian outside the courthouse. Ken, just a few minutes ago, you and I were speaking to Glenn Kirshner, and he said the opposite. He said this is Amy Berman Jackson's cleanup day. Well, she just led with, "I ain't here to clean up anybody else's mess."
Well, look, Stephanie, I think Glenn was talking about as a matter of human nature. And Ari Melber made the point that as a matter of law, it's really not appropriate for her to consider the sentence that Judge Ellis imposed, except for the narrow purpose of whether she's going to tack a sentence on and make Manafort serve it consecutively, or whether her sentence will go at the same time. And she made that point right off the bat, that, look, it's not her job to cure a bad thing that people think happened in Virginia last week. At the same time, she can consider the conduct that Manafort displayed. She can consider his lack of apparent remorse, unless he rectifies that today by apologizing, something he hasn't done. And she can consider the fact that he allegedly committed crimes even after he pleaded guilty and began cooperating with prosecutors. And so we'll just have to see how it goes. I'll tell you also that Manafort was wheeled into court today. He's wearing a dark suit, unlike the jailhouse garb that he was wearing in Virginia last week. We're not sure why that is, but he's wearing a suit today.
All right, Jason Rick back with me. And joining the conversation, Washington Post White House bureau chief, my dear friend Phil Rucker. Phil, I go to you first. This comes against the backdrop of Democratic infighting over impeachment of President Trump. And we know the president sent out a number of tweets this morning, and I want to share a bit where he writes, "I greatly appreciate Nancy Pelosi's statement against impeachment, but everyone must remember the minor fact that I never did anything wrong, while reiterating that impeachment is for high crimes and misdemeanors." All right, so is the White House worried about this Paul Manafort sentencing at all? I mean, last week was a huge victory for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're not worried insofar as they're not directly involved in the Paul Manafort sentencing, but clearly President Trump is paying close attention. He has been, for many months now, quite sympathetic to Paul Manafort and has not shut the door, importantly, not shut the door to a pardon of Paul Manafort. I would expect the president will be following the news today and will comment on it in due time. And, of course, some of the questions reporters are going to be asking have to do with whether he would consider pardoning his former campaign chairman. I mean, Paul Manafort was not some fringe figure in the Trump orbit. He actually ran the campaign during a very important period in 2016.
Yeah, when the president secured the Republican nomination.
Correct.
Yeah, probably the most important point. All right, Jason, I want to share what some Democrats have said, their reaction to Speaker Pelosi's stance on impeachment. Take a look.
The only thing worse than putting the country through the trauma of an impeachment is putting the country through the trauma of a failed impeachment.
Nancy Pelosi is absolutely right. Let's take that out. That's off the table right now. We've got a lot of research that we still need to do.
I think that we both believe that the Mueller report, we should wait for the Mueller report. She just commented on what her standard would be once the Mueller report comes out.
So while Rupert Murdoch's New York Post said that Nancy Pelosi blinked, they don't sound like they're blinking. They're not saying no impeachment. They're saying let's wait until we get Robert Mueller's facts.
Which is what they're supposed to do. Look, they all think he's unfit, right? The Democrats want to impeach Donald Trump. But if they pretend that they already believe that he should be gone, then they sort of negate the impact of the Mueller report. What Nancy Pelosi wants to do, assuming that they can actually get the report to be public, right? And that's still in question. What Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat leadership want to do right now is they want to say, oh my gosh, I had no idea this was the case. I guess we have no choice now but to impeach. So she has to set it up as if there is some question. There has to be some doubt before we get to the end of law and order. And so this makes perfect sense. And you're going to have the sort of far left people screaming initially, but this is the wiser plan.
Initially, I'm pretty sure the far left is going to scream a little and scream a lot.
Impeachment is inherently a political process. Nancy Pelosi's statement is good politics. She's taking it off the table politically so that they can tell their message is we are working on the business of government and we have an agenda that's separate from the Mueller track and impeachment and investigations. And what Adam Schiff said is very important. A failed impeachment would be terrible for the country, and if it will fail because many people think the president got impeached, that means he's going to be removed from office. No, it doesn't. You can be an impeached president and serve in office. The Senate, then you have a trial, and the Senate has to convict you. And there is no way on God's green earth this Senate is ever going to convict Donald Trump.
And yet, the smartest move, because again, you've got multiple cases that are also going on in the Southern District of New York. There will be investigations of the presidency all the way through. How about doing impeachment next summer and forcing a bunch of Republicans during an election year to defend this president all throughout the summer during the greatest trial when he's running for re-election? There's a timing issue to this as well. None of them are going to sit back on impeachment. They just want to wait until the perfect time to hurt the president.
And isn't that the better outcome anyway, is in 2020 for the re-election, have the people make a summary judgment, which the people put President Trump there, like it or not. I mean, people voted. He's there. Let the people remove him. That's a much better than having
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you give the people all the evidence they need by forcing Republicans in the Senate to have to justify keeping this guy in office. Now, look, I have already said, political science and history suggests that the president probably gets reelected. You can't wait. If you actually think this president is a danger, if you think he's been breaking the law, if you think he's been colluding, if you think that he's brought lots of other people who are breaking the law into office, you can't just sit back and wait for the American people to make a wise decision.
Jason, Do the Right Thing was a winning movie. It wasn't real life. Phil, I just want to go back to Manafort for a second. How real is this idea of a presidential pardon? It is interesting that the president and Rudy Giuliani, one person who they seem to never go against, well, Putin, Ivanka, and Manafort.
Yeah, it's real in the longer term, I think. I think it's unrealistic to expect that a pardon would be issued, say, tomorrow or next week. I think if President Trump were going to act on this, it wouldn't be for a little bit of time. But I think it's certainly something that he will think about. Of all of the cast of characters who've become ensnared in this investigation, Paul Manafort is clearly the most likely to be able to secure some sort of presidential pardon. That's simply based on all of the complimentary things that President Trump has had to say about Manafort and the extent to which Manafort has resisted the investigation throughout.
Wow. Well, it's going to be a very exciting day. I kind of think it always is. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Next,